everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is, I mean, every episode is special. This one is taking me back to the roots. I think I met Alina about more than a decade ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I was working for this animation school slash studio, and we had this thing called Hangouts. And Lena was always, she was right there. I mean, actually, you could say we were the co-founders of this podcast because you inspired me. You gave me the confidence. You just made it a convo.
Aw.
You were speaking, you were helping facilitate, and I was learning so much about your world and the world of that audience. And so I was so blessed because for me, I'm a super introvert. So
Mm-hmm.
uh but yeah, I got so educated, and as I was thinking about people who influenced me and the guest list on this podcast, your name definitely came up. And
Oh, I'm
all
so flattered.
and I have to give you your flowers. Seriously. I mean, this whole thing, like even it was novel technology like 12 years ago, right? Plus, but here we are on Zoom. And you're in London.
Again.
I'm in
Yes.
Cali.
Yes.
Um Alina is a lead animator. She's worked on film after film and so many creative projects. And I will, after we have you talk about your favorite wear, I want to say something about something that you
Okay.
obviously you probably didn't know. Most of the world didn't know, but some of my students have known. Alina, what do you have on for us?
So thank you for having me, first of all. I'm wearing a super cozy sweater with this cute little raccoon on it, which is actually by an illustrator. She's called Abigail Birch. I hope I'm saying
Mm,
that right. And I need a lot of cozy wear here in the UK because we got that kind of weather. So I'm wearing that quite a lot, and I'm just always a bit happy with this guy here. That's it, really.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The the thing I want to bring up was you so I looked on your IMDb.
Mhm.
Uh
Oh.
well, it's just like I'm so happy that from all these years, I mean, you're just gung ho and you keep going for it. And I saw this film called Red Tails. Did you really work on Red Tails?
Yes. That
Oh,
was um that was actually my first job, yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I got lucky to get into it, but it was my first job and it was very exciting.
I can't, yeah. For the Black community and for myself, I can't tell you how much that means to me. My
Oh,
father was an African American soldier, and so for me, as we were
really?
talking about
Oh,
narratives that we don't hear, I
yeah,
grew up on a military base, and so I saw Black soldier, Black after Black soldier, and then
yeah.
when I came to the U.S., uh, growing up in the world of the army and all these other things, I've
Mm,
always seen minority soldiers, but as I looked through
yeah.
history books, they didn't exist. So I kept researching, and this is about seventh grade. There were little articles. There were never any books,
Mm.
um, and I always wondered because my dream as a kid was to be a pilot, and
Oh,
so I was like, or are there any African American pilots? I mean, if there aren't any, stories about regular soldiers, I doubt there's going to be any pilots. So I found little snippets of
yeah.
articles on Tuskegee Airmen.
Yes.
So I wrote a report on it. My English teacher was like, "Hey, this is a big deal. I think you should turn this into a project." So I entered this local contest called the History Day Project. Uh, by the way, we took first place, but what I did was I researched every book that I could find, went to the military base to look for their articles, and then um, because they trained in Tuskegee, I was like, you know what? Let's try to do something like a primary source. So I called the Tuskegee airport, and I just
You
like
did.
I was the only,
Amazing.
yeah, only like 11, 12 years old. And I was like, hey, I'll
Oh,
do this project. Do you know? And they're like, you know what? My mentor is the man, Chief Alfred Anderson, and he trained them. Would you like to talk with him?
wow.
So he set up an appointment, talking over the phone with a cord, right? Like,
Yeah, old school ways that
yeah,
way.
yeah. And I got to interview him for an hour. And then um, what I did was, or what he did was, he let me know that this was like perfect timing and it was very inspirational. So they did the Learning Channel documentary, and then they did a movie for HBO at that time. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, basically, even as an 11, 12-year old, I was like one of the first guys to consolidate that information.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I mean, my own ignorance. I had
uh,
no idea
yeah,
until I started working on the film, right?
most people did.
So,
Black folks
yeah.
don't. It's just like it. And then all of a sudden all these, so thank you so much for cementing that, because as we're talking about TikTok too, or even Instagram, the teenagers in my school was like, Mr. Reese, if there isn't a photo, if there is no visual, it never happened. I was like, bro.
Oh, bro, times used to be different. No, it was a great project to work on. I learned a lot. From what I understand, it was in the making for a long time, like quite a lot of years.
Okay.
I don't know exactly why it took long or what the problem was or whatever, but it was definitely, yeah, I learned a lot and really grateful to be part of something. Even now when I tell people, because it was my first job, so it comes up quite a lot. Actually, people are like, when was your first job? I was like, well, randomly, this visual effects film. Obviously, I was a tiny junior animator, so, you know, but.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that.
Ah.
So what are your passions?
Oh God, quite a few. I mean, obviously animation. Been working
Yeah.
in it for 12 years. So,
Yeah.
and even before as a kid, like even as a teenager, just obsessed with animated films and like,
Mm.
but you know, I'm a dancer.
Oh.
I like to dance. I wanted to become a dancer. Now my job's still kind of somewhat connected with movement, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
So
That's
I
about to
think
say.
I stuck to my lane, like unknowingly. I think movement and dancing with friends, even singing, not that I'm a great singer, but I like doing it. Something maybe that we've lost a little bit doing, like these kind of creative things that nowadays you have to be good at them to
Yeah.
practice, or you have to turn them into money. So I think I kind of always try and encourage my friends, like, let's go for a boogie, and you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, nobody's good or bad, let's just shake it out.
Yeah.
Or scream around in the club singing. I guess recently, maybe the last 5 years, mental health
Yeah.
has been quite at the forefront of my passions. I think the amount of books I've read is a bit insane. Trying to be good at therapy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very into that. Obviously, you can kind of study that every day, no matter what interactions you have with your friends or even just strangers on the street. You're kind of, it's all like little data points of how we work. And that's kind of quite important to me at the moment, because I feel like it informs everything in life that we do, right? Or why we do things, why we have certain passions.
Yeah. Or how much we actually have in common instead of we're different, or our differences make us, the same. I saw this clip and it was like so simple but profound. And this this black kid, he was on Instagram and he was recording this video of this water drop, and it was like he was following the water drop, he was bored, had nothing to do, and he was like, oh, it's racing another water drop, right? And then everyone's commenting like, oh, I used to do that too as a kid, or as I'm driving. But if we keep that narrative to ourselves and we lose it, we gaslight ourselves like, oh, I'm weird. Like what?
Yeah, I'm weirdo. I used to do this weird thing, and then thousands of people are like, I did the same. No, I think we have much more in common than we think. Maybe shows up in different ways, but at the core, a lot of it is very similar.
Yeah. How'd you, amongst all your passions and obviously you leaning into animation, not for the money, but how did you know that this was yours? And actually, it wasn't like your parents pressured you into it or your friends pressured. Like, how did you own it?
I can't really, I think superficially, I can't take that much credit, but I think I just, because again, I was obsessed with dancing as a teenager, and you have to decide really young what you're going to study and what your job's going to be when really you're barely an adult. Like, what do you know, right? So I personally wanted to kind of pursue dancing, but my mom was kind of a bit like, yeah, but future prospects and stuff might be, it's a tough job, like maybe not consistent, right? So I did study in the end and tried to find something that's creative but also technical at the time, because I was quite good in like the maths, the physics, and my mom was a bit like, maybe let's do something with that, and I was like, okay. And I kind of just naturally found it. Like I didn't study to become an animator. I discovered it during my studies. We had one tiny course that was animation. I studied audiovisual media, so it was very broad, like any kind of media. And I was just kind of like, oh, really, I'm like a Finding Nemo fan. And I think
Mm.
in this course, they kind of explain a little like how it's done and like how CG animation works. And
Wow.
that's kind of how it happened. So I was in there and I was like, oh yeah, I'm interested in this. And I just had this interest and specifically in the acting part, like in the, making the characters move and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And I think in the end, it like, if I would meet someone from like, let's say my primary school or something, and that I haven't seen in 20 years or
Yeah.
whatever, 30 years, um, and I would tell them I'm an animator, I think they'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Just, I think as a kid, I was quite like, had a bit of an attitude and was like a bit of a goofy. I think I was always a bit of an actor and
Mm.
like moving around. Was on stage a lot, I guess. I was in the choir, I had my
Wow.
dance group, like just was a bit of an entertainer in my family, maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think just the interest for that or feeling confident in that space
yeah.
uh just led me there.
Mm.
And then you're just in it, right? You're like, okay, now I have to somehow get my first job. And I was just like not questioning it. I was just like, yeah, I want this. This is fun.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know it was a job to work in animation, like what? That exists? Yeah, I guess people need
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that speaks volumes. Like you actually have to have, I don't want to sound, it's not superficial or even critical, like have good taste because you have these benchmarks of getting this visceral reaction to an audience and knowing like, oh, this is going to hit.
Yeah.
And it's hard work because I'm pretty sure you're hard on yourself. Like it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure this one, knowing that world, you have to be. But it's
Yeah.
weird because I don't think there's other people like we're so hyper focused. You just focus on the work, but then you never know. Like you have to get to the end point, but some people aren't used to that, you know.
Yeah. Do you
So
mean in like as in like finishing project
yeah, yeah,
or
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's the
yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely a candidate for that. Like, you try, you work hard, you finish one thing, you don't finish the other. There's so many things that you want to do and you never find the time.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I think it's one of the industry where you have to specifically maybe the first 1 or 2 years, you have to like hustle a bit and be like, no, I need to
yeah, yeah.
show something to apply with something because otherwise how are they going to know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I can do
exactly.
this?
Yeah.
Um, but
Um,
yeah,
in the
did it.
animation industry or not, just in life, is there any one moment where it was just a light bulb, something illuminating where you're just like, oh, this is who I am?
Oh, that's a nice question. Um, I think the realization that I'm doing like acting and dancing, that kind of stuff, that it makes sense with animation. I had that fairly early on.
Mm,
I think what I've had recently, actually, maybe a year ago, and I'm 12 years in the industry, yeah. um, I think I had a moment where the company that I'm working at right now, I felt, and this is external, but I
mm,
felt so just not even just validated, just taken seriously that I'm an animator who has 12 years of experience, and that's how they treated me there. They didn't question like if I was good enough. They weren't even looking at my reel. And I was, yeah, yeah, you're making appropriate
yeah, yes,
faces.
yes, yes.
Um, because it was weird to me. I was a bit confused in the beginning. I was like, why do they want me here? So I'm not used to that. And then obviously, like let's say maybe 3 months in, I was like, oh no, but I deserve that. That's who I am. I am a very experienced animator who deserves to be treated like this. It just hasn't happened that much until then. So that was very yeah,
That's
that was a moment.
that's praise. I love
Yeah.
that. Yes.
I mean, I love that for me that finally
I love
happened.
that for
Should have
you
happened
too.
before. Should have happened much before, but it's just it's a competitive industry, and it's hard to not compare yourself with others, right? It's hard because you have such quantifiable
Yeah,
things like creative stuff that people working on, and you just always think everyone else is better when it's not the truth, right?
that's
You're doing your best, you're good in your ways. um but yeah, that was pretty major.
that's really, I mean, that goes for anyone. And I think in any, it's not even any industry, any office
Mm,
job, any workplace,
mm,
And so when we talk about the adult world, I mean, because we're blessed when we're younger, rails are provided for us, and certain types of etiquette. And
Yeah.
we were talking about mass earlier, but when you're on your own,
Mm.
you learn real quick. I mean, actually, no one is obligated to support you, and if you do find someone that supports you, it is
Mm.
such a blessing. And if it's
Yeah.
merit based, right? And they
Yes.
just see you for
Yeah.
your work. Like they
Yes.
understand that you have the skill set, years of experience. It's not just like
Yeah.
talent, like it's something that's been
No,
developed.
that's built. And I could have, it's just finally someone giving you that
Yeah,
opportunity to show something that you were probably able to do 5 years ago anyways, but
yeah,
nobody believed in you or trusted you, or, there's this bias against women that they
yeah,
have to prove that they can
yeah,
already do the thing, while as a lot of times for men it's like, oh, they have great potential or whatever, and then they get hired on that merit often. I mean, it's obviously very unconscious and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
takes a lot of self-awareness to be, kind of breaking down these patterns. But just, yeah, having actually, yeah, I think I appreciate every single person. I'm so aware of the few people in the industry who've given me opportunities, and I know exactly who they were, because it just makes such a big difference.
That's
Yeah.
everything. And so that's like a perfect transition to my next question. It's like, um, how do you, as you're hearing and you encounter all these different experiences, mass, voices, uh, worldviews, uh, how do you determine what's true? Like, how do you not gaslight yourself? And how do you know when
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not in the right, but and I try to tie this to problem solving too, right? Because like it's math or whatever. Okay, here's the problem set, figure it out. But we are
Yeah.
actually dealing with people.
Yeah. Um, I think that's actually something that I really only learned in therapy for 3 years ago, is opposite to math, to just understand that we're not black and white. There is no right and wrong with people. So if that's in my private life or even at work,
Mm,
I just try and see all the shades of gray.
yeah,
um, and just try and give truth. Like, if someone's, maybe if someone's not 100% believing in you, don't take it personal, but see what you can do about it. But ask yourself, because people are wrong about these things. People project their own insecurities onto you, and but you can't change that. You can't change other people, right? You just have to see what you can do with those situations. um so I would say finding the truth, and it's you have to find your truth, because
yeah,
everyone has a different truth. It's a lot of conversations with my therapist,
yeah.
a lot of conversations with friends,
Mm,
voicing your needs, expressing yourself. I think we live so much on,
yeah,
we make a lot of assumptions nowadays. This person said this, that
yeah, yeah,
has to mean they meant that, when maybe they didn't mean
yeah,
that. Like,
yeah,
I don't want to say we're our own worst enemy sometimes, but we
yeah,
are making life hard for ourselves
yeah,
sometimes, with whatever our brain's
yeah,
trying to trick us into believing about ourselves. And probably most of us are
yeah,
better at our jobs
yeah,
and better people than we think we are.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's a number of things that are, I don't say against us, but as creatives, right, artists,
Mm.
we're already in our own heads. Uh,
Yes.
COVID, I don't know how it was for you, but for us, like, then we're just internalizing. We're not talking with other people as
Oh
much.
God, even worse. Yeah, like, don't do that to us. Yeah. No, I think that's also the hard bit about, just to add to that, being in a creative industry, is that that's also so hard to put in numbers
Yeah,
what is right, what is wrong. It's so subjective, right? Like,
yeah,
does this look good, or does this sound good, or does this relate to people or not? It's very personal. So
yeah,
there's even more anxiety or worrying around, like, are you good or not? Because there is no definite answer to a lot of things. So that's not helpful for us, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I had don't want to go into too deep into
yeah,
it, but I really had to. I had some, like, exercises that I did with my therapist
yeah,
about
yeah.
my work, like how we're connecting our self-worth to
Ah,
our job, which is
yeah,
obviously, no matter what we do at work, our self-worth has not changed for like 1 second.
yeah,
Yeah, and I actually had to write down like every day how I felt, like let's say from 1 to 10, how worthy do I feel today?
Wow.
And I
Okay.
wrote it down over, let's say, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I actually realized, then looking at it, that
Yeah.
the days where I felt less worthy was actually not when I was criticized or something. It was when other people were praised.
Ah.
When other people were praised, not that I wasn't happy for them or whatever, but I guess I was instantly comparing myself and thinking, oh, I'm not, whatever, I'm not as
Yeah.
fast as this person. Maybe they were praised because they did something really fast
Yeah.
or fast turnaround.
Yeah.
But that doesn't equally mean that I'm not good enough or
Mm-hmm.
still good at what I'm doing, right? So
Yeah.
once you see that so black and white written down, you're like, oh, but that's silly. I should stop that.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say I'm not saying so, but it's real. It's real.
It is.
It
Oh no,
is
it's
real. Yeah,
totally
yeah,
real.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
these
yeah, yeah.
feelings
Yeah,
are,
yeah,
they're very valid. They're there, but I think we can do things to help us a
yeah,
bit to I
yeah,
don't want to say minimize them, but
yeah,
neutralize it a bit
yeah,
and be
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
distance yourself
Because
from
because
this.
that
Like you're doing good.
because the way we grew up, we can't change it. The experiences that we had, we can't change it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but Lord willing, the new people we encounter, we can pivot a little bit better.
Yeah. I think
Well,
it's
yeah,
yeah. No, it's definitely, I think we can train ourselves a little bit to unlearn some of the things we learned in childhood. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that's
Well, something that we talked about a little bit briefly, and actually I saw this documentary on, Kanye, and it was kind of
mm,
interesting about what his mom said to him, because how talented he was.
yeah.
And he says when a giant looks in a mirror, a giant doesn't see a giant. He
Mm,
only sees him or herself, but he
yeah.
can't see how the world sees him. And
Mm,
actually, um, that's why I think, um, not teenagers, but elementary school students and some middle school, junior high students, they'll
mm,
tell you the truth, whether they like you or not or whatever. But
yes.
um, but to read in between and actually, when I interact with them or they interact with me, it's really interesting how I'm learning that, you can create such a standard,
Mm.
and people are just you created this norm, and maybe you're so good or whatever it is, and I'm praising you and other high, because then it's like for other people maybe they haven't hit that mark, and then they get praised
Mm,
so easily because they don't hit certain benchmarks too. I
yeah.
think there's that perception too, because
Yeah.
especially high achievers,
Yeah.
and people who
Yes.
work really, and people are used to it. Oh, you work 80 hours a week, okay, all right, that's the norm for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you do you.
Yeah, yeah,
No, totally. I feel like I've noticed that as well a lot in my career. It's the standard that's set also maybe not amongst the people, but also
yeah,
at the top of
yeah, yeah.
whatever, your manager, your next manager. It just trickles down, like if you
There's
want
that
to or
too.
not. Like whatever standard
No.
you're setting, if your manager is working
Yeah, yeah,
80 hours, even if they're not saying you
yeah,
have to work 80 hours, it's
yeah,
in your head. You're like, oh, I should probably work more. And
yeah,
that's not something that I would like. I was like,
yeah,
no, please don't work 80 hours a
yeah,
week.
yeah. The other
Yeah.
flip side of it, what I've noticed too, just talking to friends, again, this
Mm.
is like maybe it's like therapy by consensus. It's
Yes.
like, actually, like when we first logged on, I was so happy. Like, and so I'm pretty sure if Lord willing, I see you in person, I'm gonna be this happy. And I do that with certain individuals, but
Mm.
I'm an extreme introvert. Like I'm whatever INFP, and people don't believe it because
Mm.
when we're having like a sincere conversation, outgoing, just like I'm
Yeah.
just. But if it's like regular, oh, how's the weather? I'm like, I don't know. We're under the same sky. Like, uh,
Yeah.
but with that being said, when I'm serious, when I'm in artist mode, when you're probably
Mm.
locking in,
Mm.
I don't say I have a resting face, but I have a resting trauma face. Like, and there's
No.
something like, like it's just like
Mm.
this is what matters to me in this physical space
Yeah,
intrinsically
right now.
too, and people do
Yeah.
not get it. And
Oh,
I
really?
and I praise them. Like I wish I could just go through a routine and checklist, and this is what I do on my day. But for someone that's
Mm-hmm.
a creative, this is me expressing myself and being alive at that moment,
Yeah,
you know.
of course.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense.
but I didn't know I had resting trauma face.
Did
Like
someone tell you, like, yo, you're looking a bit?
yeah, yeah. Or like some people's like, so I have some friends like they know I'm approachable. Even if I'm in that mood,
Yeah.
they can prod me. They know, they're your piece. Like, hey,
Yeah.
But there are other people that just don't get. I'm like, dude, what are you doing in my space? Like,
Yeah.
just like I know that you're not. I'm not saying contribute, but just like, what is it? Is this going to be a shallow thing? Is this something
Yeah.
easily taken care of? You know.
Yes.
Hopefully you're not shooting for attention because I will shoot that down real quick.
Yeah, that's
Like,
sorry
yeah,
though.
yeah. But my friend's
Yeah.
like, yeah. You have you're approachable. People don't get you're approachable because they don't know
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's fair enough. I think that goes back to the assumptions again, right? Like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
think we see someone and we instantly have an
yeah,
opinion. We're like, oh,
yeah,
that guy's not approachable because
yeah,
look at his face. But
yeah.
talk to you once or twice and it's like, oh no,
Oh
he's
yeah,
super
yeah,
approachable, right?
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. But
no,
yeah,
totally.
the standards that we create, and we don't know that that's how people are perceiving them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something I learned as well. Like, I think a lot of times I would find myself in this position of thinking people don't want to talk to me because, I don't know, they're busy, they don't like me, or they seem really like sure of themselves. And I was always like, oh my God, they're so arrogant or whatever. And it turns out it's just like I'm quite insecure about if people don't like me or not. So maybe I'm a bit shy and they think, oh, seems like she doesn't want to talk to me. And that's the
Yeah,
end of the story, right?
yeah.
And I make up all these
There
things
it
in my
is. Yeah,
head why they're it's insane. Yeah, I think we should walk around a bit more neutral towards people and not
yeah,
project all of our
yeah.
things onto them, which is
Yeah.
hard, but
On the flip side of it, when we create, we present all those nuances that are
yes.
very human.
Yes. When we're
This is
doing
the
it.
trap. This is the trap.
Yeah.
How in the years that you put in, how does the future of animation look? Or what did you see in the leaps from when you first started to now? Are there things that are a lot easier? Or are there things that are more difficult?
Interesting. Um, I mean, I can only say from my perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously the first years I had a lot to learn and didn't know
Yeah.
about a lot of things compared to now, where I'm feeling quite confident in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's definitely more awareness now about all the things that we just spoke about of like, hey, we're only making cartoons. You can be passionate about it, you can be, but don't like your mental health goes first. Like this is at the end of the day, this is a job.
Wow. I love
Um,
that.
and I think there's more of that now coming. I feel
Okay.
like maybe I had maybe a lot of like leads or supervisors or bosses that were a bit more old school, that are a bit more I want to see you put the work in. I want to see you work
Wow.
outside of
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A bit more like you have to prove yourself
Yeah.
to them and
Yeah.
you have to go the extra mile. Whereas I think there's more of an understanding now, like you do your best in the time that you have. If you push yourself too much, then you'll start burning out, or
Yeah.
also this kind of focus of not having people work out of fear. I think because people are scared, oh, I'm not good enough for this job, they're going to fire me after 2 months. I think we underestimate how much, especially creativity, leans on being in a good place with yourself, in a safe space where you then actually can create authentically.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're fear-based, I think you can still do good work,
Produce.
but you can still produce, exactly, but it's never going to be as like authentic or
Mm-mm.
like as much of you as you could.
Yeah.
So I personally put a lot of emphasis on this with my team, and I think on my current project we're all very this is very important to us, that people have their personal life and don't
Mm.
like go too far with this. I think there's a change. There's still companies where that's, it's a huge
Yeah.
industry, right? And the deadlines are always there
Yeah.
and whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was a big change, I think. And then, I mean, I don't want to go into the AI
Yeah.
conversation. Obviously, that's a biggie at the
Yeah. Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen there? I think at the end of the day, it's more moral
Yeah.
problem than the actual technology.
Yeah.
The technology is fascinating. Is it scary for us? Yeah, because it's producing good stuff in a very short amount of time. But at the end of the day, the problem is that it needs laws. It needs
Yes.
you know, people can't be exploited for this machine to work.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also, just like general conversation, weren't the machines supposed to do the stupid jobs, the non-fun
Yeah.
jobs?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
now they're
yeah, yeah.
taking the fun
Yeah.
stuff. Like it's like we've forgotten what it means to be
Yeah.
human. Like that
Yeah.
was not the point.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know how that will hit the animation industry or anything. It's really hard to
Yeah.
judge, but
Well, I think human beings, it takes a while, unfortunately. But we tend to know what is the right thing. I mean, I
I
think,
think so. Yeah,
um,
we
you
usually get
know,
it eventually.
yeah, yeah.
Might
I
take
mean,
too long sometimes.
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, well, unfortunately, but fortunately, your experience, the same thing, my experience, like now that you're, as a lead, you have the squad, a safe sense of space is the most important. And
Absolutely, yeah.
people who have, just been given that position or whatever it is, they don't get that you have souls here, and people are going to work anyway. Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, there's this former CIA agent who was talking about how they try to teach the four ways of persuasion just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And the acronym is RICE, rewards, ideology, coercion, and ego. He
Okay.
says um, the you could appeal to all three. Appealing to someone's ego, not bad. People want to be applauded, right? Whatever.
Yes.
Ideology, we're actually already in it for the right reasons. Hopefully, that's the common.
Mm.
Rewards, it feels good. That's merit based. But the
Yeah.
one thing you never want to use, and it does work, but you never want to use is coercion, because once you use it, that person will never trust you.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you can
Yeah.
keep putting that violent carrot in front of them, but it
No,
just,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
in regards to AI, I'm seeing it. Well, because I have to deal with it in terms of teaching essays, and
Yeah.
and I and
Oh
I
God.
oh, but here's the thing. Like I read it, I'm like, the AI can't make transitions. It doesn't make these
Mm-hmm.
logical leaps.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't dwell in reality. And
No.
so I'm getting topic sentence after top. I was like, I'll give you a D plus. I'll grade this. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I was like, did you actually read it? No. I was like, bro,
Oh.
I thought you wrote it. No, but anyway, um, so and then I don't know if you saw or remember that Miyazaki video where someone's like really happy showing them AI and how like these things are automatically moving,
Oh
and they're like
yes.
they're like this
He's like,
broken zombie. Like it was like, oh, and,
no.
and I think what like my students still love Studio Ghibli films, and I
Yeah.
actually asked them, do you know why? And they're like, no. And I was like, I showed them a clip,
Mm.
and I'm like, it's these little nuances, and
Yeah.
we our attention span is so short, but when we watch it, we know we're in love with it. This reminds us of being
Mm.
human, because you'll just have this girl struggling to tie her shoe, and you are
Yeah.
with her
Yeah.
because you've experienced it. Um, so we get a sense when something is manufactured, and that's what like you were talking
For
about too.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, no. I think
Ugh.
Miyazaki also he leaves time for details, you know, like
Yeah.
is this relevant to the story? It's not always so important. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it just matters that people can relate, you know, for them to feel
Yeah.
the story more. And I think, yeah, we've lost a bit of that, I think.
Yeah. So my goal financially is hopefully to get financially stable enough, comfortable enough that, whoever I collab with, here's the money, take your time, feed yourself,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and things will work out. Because he could do that at Ghibli, you know, to
Oh,
be that creative. Um,
for sure.
how how do you handle stumbling blocks? Like, how do you turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones? I don't like to use failures or setbacks, but however
No,
you want to.
stumbling blocks. I mean, I think when I stumble, when there's a problem or something, I'm definitely like a doer. I'm like, I need a plan of action. um, so there's definitely a lot of planning going into
Mm,
it, and
I love
lots
it.
of like, what are the possible outcomes? Like, let's go through every scenario, best case scenario, worst
Yeah.
case scenario. Um, but I've learned recently, maybe sometimes to just take like a step back and take some time.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so sorry, because whatever your stumbling block is in your career, if it's a person at work that you can't get along with, or if it's a specific task, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe private stuff in your private life, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
um, when things happen, when things stumble you, I think we're often in a quite emotional state, right? Like we need to process to what just happened first, for then to eventually maybe come back into ourselves and be a bit clearer about what we want, what we need. I think our mind can really not play tricks on us, but it's very foggy when we're emotional or when we're struggling.
Yeah.
So I think taking some time, especially as a creative, if we say we have a creative stumbling block, creativity really, before we capitalize it, comes out of boredom, if you will. Like if you're really, you've got nothing else to do, you're so safe, whatever, financially, you've got everything sorted out. I find I'm the most creative when I have the space to be creative, not when I have to be. Obviously, we learned a way because it's our job. We have to do it every day. We've learned a way to kind of do that. But the stuff that I do for myself, like, comes when I'm like in a good place, in a happy place, and I'm like bored, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then it's like, oh, this and this and this and this. And then write it down for the days where you don't have the space. Write down what you wanted to do, you know, for example. But yeah, I mean, I could talk so much about this stumbling blocks. I mean, everything's a stumbling block. I think knowing yourself really well is like, invest some money, if this is books, if it's therapy, if it's whatever, YouTube videos. I mean, we have to be careful on the internet. There's also a lot of wrong information out there, but know yourself. And I think a lot of us think we know ourselves, but do we really know what our needs are deep down? Because whatever your stumbling block is, you need to know why it's stumbling for you. What's your need and how can you get there? Who do you express your need to? I think knowing yourself is a privilege to get to that point, because I think it's quite up high on the, you know, the pyramid, the needs pyramid, right? You got the money, the food at the bottom, the house. Even creativity is quite high. Why I think creative jobs can be quite like privileged jobs, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, I would like get to know yourself.
I think that's really big about, you know, knowing yourself. Because what you mentioned, like that, you know, YouTube with the side eye, but I think it's true because in this world, we're always being sold something.
Yeah.
And so it sounds cliche, but we don't know our needs from our wants. And actually we grab for our wants first.
Yes.
And then we still feel empty. And that's why when you're talking,
yeah, because I think also sometimes it's more vulnerable to actually either express or know your needs. You know, wants are a bit more like you go for it. You're like, this is what I want in life and I'm gonna get it. But you're being vulnerable about your needs, like even to yourself, I think that takes courage and like a certain kind of self-awareness and being vulnerable with yourself first, to then maybe share it with someone or do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, because there we say, you know, if we mention our needs, we look so weak. And that's what the world tells us. But that's not true.
That's not true.
Yeah, no. It's not true.
No, it's actually the opposite. It's very strong. Like it takes a lot of energy. It's so bold, and it shouldn't be courageous to say, hey, I need help or I need this. But somehow we've ended up in a world where it seems like that, but it's actually really the opposite.
How, any advice for anyone looking to get into the industry?
I think there's like two kinds of advice. There's creative advice, you know, put yourself out there. You have to be a bit of a brand. You know, if that means, I don't know, I'm not doing this anymore, but like if that means that whatever, your Instagram, your Facebook, all your logos maybe the same, so people can recognize you. You know, think of yourself as a company a bit. Like, how do I sell myself? How do I stay in people's minds? Like, does that mean, do I have to go to networking events? Do I post regularly? Do I connect with people? So I think, especially in the first few years, because nobody knows about you except maybe your fellow students, right? Put yourself out there. I know this is hard, you know, for a lot of people because you feel like you're annoying other people, but this is about your needs. other people are annoyed by you, they can turn you off or look away. That's none of your business, right? And also, most of the time, you're actually not annoying people. That's just in your head. Creatively, I would say when you're applying, you know, your best work. I know when you're a student, you've worked on everything really long and you're like, oh, I need to show that I can do this. So you want to show everything. If you have less work, but it's better, do that rather than the whole shebang. And some things you're like, oh, I could have done that better, but I didn't have time. Okay, no, then it doesn't belong on your reel or your portfolio. I think staying in touch with your fellow students is helpful. They will give you jobs, literally. That's how it works a lot. I think it's maybe a bit of an, I don't want to say unfair part of the industry, but there's definitely something to be said about networking and connections. It's about staying in people's minds. That when they're at a company and this company is looking for 5 more people for this, and they're like, oh, I know someone. It matters a lot on top of, I mean, your creative skills, of course. I think whatever creativity you're doing, if you're super into it, passionate about it, you know, be in it, be passionate about it, because I feel like when you're 10 years in a career or 12, you're starting to get a bit tired. You're still passionate about it, but life happens and this, and you've been doing it for a long time. I think this hunger that people have when they're young, like, use it, do it. Like, go for it now. Just be aware. I think it'd be helpful for people to also understand what your life in the animation industry can be. Like, you know, it has like amazing advantages. Like I've lived in like, I don't know, 4 countries. I can't even remember. You know, I've moved around. Like, I've not just traveled these countries, I've lived there. So you get to know countries like very differently. Because of animation, because you know, you can have jobs everywhere, and like sometimes you even require to move a bit. But you know, if you're not the kind of person who wants to move a lot, maybe stay in a city or a town where there's a lot of animation work.
Which is a different vibe too.
Exactly, which is different. Remote work obviously exists now since the pandemic much more, but in the UK, for example, we're seeing it like go down quite a lot, because for a company, for a UK company, to hire someone outside of the UK, I think from what I understand is basically more expensive to them. So obviously they're going to try and hire people from the UK. So I wouldn't rely on it too much, but obviously thankfully it's a bit more possible now, which is great. And try and have fun with it, and you know, stay sane, look after yourself through the whole process.
I think that's amazing just wisdom and insight, because creatives, I mean, it's tough because it's not that our work is us, but it is us. You know, but it is. And so and you know what you're capable of doing, and actually you might have some hidden work, but you're just like, I don't know if this looks good to the world. So so all that muscle is there, the ego is there. But a lot of people, you know, there's a Bible reference, it's like, you have a light, but we have a blanket over it. We don't show people.
But I think there's so much fear, of being judged, of not being good enough. And if someone doesn't like your art, I mean, it says nothing about you. But separating that is so hard.
It's hard. And
it's very hard,
And you're 100% correct on that one. It's like, you may have this great portfolio, but if you don't introduce yourself, because I'm not saying the competition wise, just people don't know, and people have their work life. And when you brought up Red Tails, when we were talking about that in terms of the years that it takes. So as I'm studying like why Marvel has issues and all these other things, people's schedules, like when it's like, you know, people think everyone's just under one bubble. No, some people are contracted out.
I've even learned that recently with like, because now I'm a lead, so I'm a bit more involved in like, you know, you hear more of the conversations, who do we hire, who not.
Wow.
I guarantee you so many times, and I knew this from before already, not just from now, but so many times it's not because you're not good enough. It's like one person didn't read the email, or one person was sick that day, or because the budget is currently like this, so we need to hire juniors. And then 6 months later, something has changed, and all of a sudden we can hire seniors again. And it's like, why did they not hire me back then? And now they're hiring seniors. Like, we think we have any idea what's going on, but there's so much going on in the back that has nothing to do with you. So, you know, you can only try your best, apply as much as you can, or, you know, reach out to people and stuff. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it's not a direct reflection.
It's not you. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's, I mean, and so all you could do is try to stay on the radar. And I'm glad you brought that up though too. Make sure the branding is consistent. So when they're looking for stuff, because it's you only have one chance to make a first impression, and people are reviewing stuff, and you have to stay fresh in their mind. And like, but definitely be honored when people remember you and say thank you. You know.
Thank you.
Oh, so no, thank you for that. What film, animator or live action, has influenced you the most? Or if you are stuck on an island and you could only watch one movie over and over again.
I was expecting a question like this, and I have no direct answer. Influenced me the most. I mean, there's a few, I guess. I think, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Like, what I've noticed maybe the last 2 years, films like, let's say, Turning Red. Turning Red. There's a few more. Give me a second, I'll get to it. Encanto. There's a few more. I wish I would have written this down. I'm noticing lately a lot of films tackling generational trauma. And because I'm thinking the people who are making films now, who are directors, they're roughly my age now, maybe a bit older. And I think that's like maybe millennial generation is tidying up a little bit. Or even Elemental. I think we have a deep need, you know, just to unravel what got us to where we are, and what are maybe like downfalls in our childhood. And I'm seeing that a lot lately, and I'm super into it. Because I think that's what we need. I think there's you know, there's the fun princess story, there's this and that, but I think these kinds of stories that maybe not just demand some kind of accountability from maybe your, you know, your parents or your families or wherever you've grown up. I think that's quite important to be bold about that, and just make that a topic with at the same time showing their side of things and having understanding from where they come from. In, again, like, not in a black and white, who's the devil, who's who's, you know, who's the goody, like, just actually in a nuanced conversation. And I feel like animated films, because, you know, they're still going to be quirky about it, or there's some singing happening or whatever, they're good at doing this without being like a slap in the face. Everything Everywhere at Once, you know, I said it wrong now, but that one, same topic, is about generational trauma. So I'm digging this, and I'm feeling very seen by those films at the moment. And I assume because it's my age now who's directing and writing, and they're like, I got a story to tell.
That's amazing that you picked up on that you could articulate, like, because I see that thread.
Yeah, I guess that's it's a topic in my life at the moment. So maybe I'm seeing that in those films, and other people maybe don't. But I feel like it's a theme at the moment.
No, because so that's the one thing about stories. I think there's, what do you call it? When, at least for us, when you have your foot on the ground, you know what's working. And actually, I think going to seeing films that don't relate to us, you're like, I think, that, you know, just some studios are out of touch. Some directors are out of touch.
Yeah. Yes.
Or this is not working, and they don't understand why. So what was it? What was the film that didn't hit? Well, let's talk about a film that did hit. I'm a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. And did you watch the trilogy? I don't want to Spoiled.
I didn't watch all of them, but
Okay, okay.
that's fine. I watched the first one, I'm pretty
Okay,
sure.
okay.
Maybe the second.
Okay. So I think what was pretty wild was I think James Gunn said the protagonist is actually, and you won't get it until the third film. It was actually
Mm.
Rocket Raccoon, and he's dealing
Mm,
with generational trauma.
raccoon. Sorry.
No, the stars are aligned.
Yeah, okay. He's dealing with generational
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
trauma.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But
There
then
you
some of
go.
the things that are being produced or being funded, some executives are so out of touch and they're trying, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working?
Yeah.
Versus actually, but it takes a lot of work though. There's no way, there's no formula where you go in here and you just mine stuff and survey people to figure out what they care about.
No, no, I think also the making profit has become too much. It's too much at the
Mm,
forefront, right? Like that's why we have so many sequels and so many remakes because there's a safety for
risk
the
aversion. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, to what you said earlier, just to come back,
yeah,
good example for me, for example, Encanto, which is a film that lots of people love and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
amazing. For me, I watched it the first time and I was like, nothing
Hmm.
happened. Like
Okay.
I was like, okay. I kind of, obviously had expectations because people
Yeah.
were like hyping it up and stuff. And then I watched it with my friend
Mm-hmm.
who has a story of immigration, has a story of her family moving from Turkey to Germany to literally not just for fun, but to save their
Yeah,
lives
yeah,
for,
yeah, 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 yeah.
really tough story. And I watched it with her and we were sobbing. Like I was sobbing because, it wasn't, I couldn't relate to it because I didn't have that story and Soma was not tuned into it at all. But then I saw my friend, I know her story, she didn't have to tell me. And I watched it with her and I was like, oh my God, yeah, this is so intense. And I think sometimes we have to keep that in mind that just because you couldn't relate to a
Yeah,
film doesn't mean it was bad. It was
yeah,
just maybe
yeah,
not for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Um, and I had that with that one as well. But I mean, it was still
Wow.
the generational trauma, which
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, yep,
yeah.
yep, yep, let's tackle that one.
Well,
But yeah, that was an experience.
well,
Which
definitely, yeah.
yeah.
Being empathetic. I mean, yeah, I think there's things I actually is very telling. So yeah, you're right. There's certain films I watch by myself. Oh, it's fine. But with
Yeah.
other people, it's just like, oh, hold on.
Yeah, no, like it makes a difference. I think we're connected in that way. She
Yeah,
just had to be in the room.
yeah.
And it made me access different things in my
Oh.
brain of like, oh my God, she went through this. Like, oh shit. Ooh,
Or
you
even,
know?
yeah, or even ourselves when we're by ourselves. Actually, we know in certain situations we'll be too strong. I think we'll be too strong. You know,
Yeah.
we're like, "Guard, I'm not letting this touch my heart. No,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
at all.
Oh no, I'm totally not relating. Like bullshit.
No, 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 no."
Ooh,
Uh, um,
oopsie.
but you know what's interesting though too is there are certain points where I stopped watching animated films um because I got turned off by people's agendas or what
Yeah.
happens when I saw what happens behind the curtain. Like the Wizard of Oz, like, oh, there's someone else.
Mm.
And what broke my heart was hearing about Brave.
Oh,
And so,
yeah.
because the original director was a woman, and the
Yeah.
Risker version was like, no, we've never had a female director, so this is not going to work. And they just,
Yeah.
and when she got her award, you could tell
Mm.
how peeved she was.
Yeah.
And you're
That's
like,
heartbreaking.
it
Yeah.
would have been a different story. I mean, just the
Yes.
little nuances.
Yeah, absolutely. And even for me, that film is portraying, for me, that film is portraying a mother-daughter
Yeah,
relationship. Um, and even though I don't know the details if
yeah,
she was kicked out completely or if clearly she worked on it and it was part of her story. And I can see some of the portrayal of that mom and that daughter, the way they're fighting. I've never seen in any film. Like that was so relatable to me.
it was real. It was
And of
real.
course, there was a woman involved because she's maybe lived
Yeah,
it or,
yeah,
she has firsthand
yeah,
experience of that, which, yeah, of course. I still love that
yeah, yeah,
film
yeah,
because
yeah,
of that, even though
yeah,
I can see that
yeah.
story-wise it's,
Yeah,
has
there's
its
a lot of
things, but it's
yeah.
because they didn't let her do her thing, I would
That's what I'm
say.
saying. A lot of plot
Right?
holes, and we see this with this
Yeah.
director's cut or whatever cut.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
trust the audience that they can sit through another 15 minutes or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And even if even if they come out and say, oh, it was a bit long, but
Yeah.
they'll still get away with something from it, right? You shoot your shot.
So that's art. Art is tough. Art is
Yes.
tough.
Oh, it's very tough.
What's a question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
Oh my God. uh, I wish people would ask themselves more often, why do I feel this way?
Mm,
I want people to not take their feelings and their knee-jerk reactions as face value. I want people to understand that, you know, your feelings are valid.
mm,
I'm not saying that's not true. Your feelings in the moment, they are valid, they're happening. You're feeling them. It might be painful, it might be great. But let's ask ourselves, where do they come from?
mm.
Because we have no control over our feelings. They come from our subconscious, and our subconscious has been, I want to say, programmed when we were
Yeah.
very little, when we had very little agency, something that we were exposed to.
Yep.
So trusting that your feelings come out the way you would want to be as a person is not given.
Mm.
So I wanna I'll
Yeah.
that's a question I think people should ask themselves a bit more.
How do you see your work impacting your community?
Ooh, that's interesting. I like that question. I think if I go down to like my, let's say, animation work, I come from a 30,000 people town in the south of Germany, south of Germany. I think there's a lot, I mean, not that that was my intention. There's a lot of pride. Like I live in London, someone, you know, just the fact that I live in London and work in animation, they're just, you know, I think I wasn't aware of this for a long time, and then I asked them about it. You know, I think there's a certain like joy that, you know, I'm having this like out of like not a very common job, and that I'm doing, that I live in London, this big city, you know. I think it brings them joy. Obviously they miss me, I miss them.
Yeah.
And further to that, I would say the fact now, since I'm a lead and I'm trying to, you know, lead from a certain point of view of like being a safe space and being more like collaborative with my team rather than telling them what to do, that kind of stuff. I think when I have these conversations that people really listen. They're like, I didn't think about this yet. Or, you know, not that I'm trying to preach or anything, but like when I bring it up and talk about my work, I make sure that this is a topic because that's really important. Because actually, I'm just gonna drop a stat. The mental health like statistics in the UK in the let's say visual effects animation industry are actually below average.
Okay.
So, you know, people are struggling in this industry. And so I think this is important to put that at the forefront. And I think if that kind of talk, the way I talk about myself, the way I talk about my team, talk about my friend, if that trickles down, and it has already, I know, has already trickled down to my friends and like also people in my team or whatever, I think that's definitely happening.
That's awesome.
I hope so.
No, it is. I know there's one of the reasons, again, inviting you too, is I know students here in Silicon Valley, everyone's like STEM, engineering, doctor, lawyer, whatever, and they're doodling on the side. I remember my first year teaching high school, I saw this girl doodling, and I walked by her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm in trouble. Please don't give me attention." I was like, keep going, and her eyes just blew.
Oh,
right? Because I know, like
she remembers you.
Yeah. And so, and there are a couple people that are going into the industry, and I just want them to get permission for them not to gaslight themselves, and especially on the mental health part, right? And the workload and the criticisms. What's a personal dream or goal that you're still working towards?
You're coming with the questions. Hey. A personal dream. You know what? I've been saying this for a while. a personal dream, not because of the industry. A personal dream is to work less. The 4-day working week, man, cannot come quickly enough. I've been saying this last year. My dream for my life is that I'm still working while the 4-day working week is being like, you know, made official everywhere, and I can just experience that, which is sad because how is that my life goal, right? I mean, it's not my life goal, but I feel like I don't know, I had this epiphany maybe a year ago. I was like, I love my work. I even love my work. I'm not even one of those people who's like, oh god, I don't want to do this. And still it's just too much. Even, and I'm not even doing much overtime or anything. I've stopped that. I was like, no, I'm going to work my 8 hours a day. I'm going to do the best in those 8 hours, and that's it, because I'm going to perform better. If I stick to that. But even then, you know, the weekend, it's so little time to do all the things that we're supposed to do. So really my goal is to have a life where I can work. I don't think we would be happy if we were just
stop working,
not doing anything. Like, I want to be working, but I just want to be working, 3-4 days a week. I want to possibly live 6 months of the year somewhere warmer. Maybe. I think there's a lot of health in the sun that I'm missing out. I want to slow down, I think. I want a life that's slower eventually, without losing access to all the cool stuff in London, which that's the tricky part. Because I love, you know, whatever. Is it musicals, concerts? Like, I love having access to all of that. But yeah, I think that's the thing at the forefront, is like, how can we slow down a little bit?
Well, if you ever have time during the summer, come to Cali.
You've got the sun.
300 days a year.
Oh man, why? Oh man, I just need to look into this.
All right, we are down to our last question, so these last 3 questions are going to be existential. So
more existential.
You're more existential. So if you're comfortable, if you're not, you can always say pass. What is insecurity?
Oh, what is insecurity? It makes me sad. I think insecurity is something that's done to us at a young age. Something that, you know, we're born very confident. Little babies scream loud just because they're hungry, you know? We are born very, very confident. And I think I don't even want to blame parents. I think I want to blame society, the world that we live in. Takes that confidence away from us and instills insecurities. So yeah, they're unfair. I think unfair.
I think you mentioned it before, this making profit. I'm not blaming corporations, but you know what it is like they prey on our insecurity.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
What is love?
What is love? Love is connection, I think, mainly. Safe connection. And love is something that we are not taught to do, and we're not taught how to love, I think. Not nearly enough.
Sorry, that's what we were talking about in the literature class, in terms of, because we're talking about there's a difference between a bond and a connection, because you can be bonded in an unhealthy way,
but in a bad way.
But you can't live without that person. But there's some people you just connect with, that you're just like, even 10 years later, we're just like, same.
Safe.
What is the meaning of life?
Oh, what is the meaning of life? I think, without putting pressure on anyone, to me, the meaning of life is to have made a difference in a positive way. Just to, you know, leave planet Earth a better way than you entered it. In whatever way that is, that could be so many different things, right?
I love that. Actually, we're talking about that again. I told our students, I'm not here to be your babysitter. I'm here because I'm tired of the way the world is. I don't like the status quo. So put a
Needs to
dent,
change.
put a dent on your verse or cause a ripple effect. Just being nice to the custodian makes a difference, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Last but not least, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, I did that a while ago in some course. Um, uh, own your space. Yeah, own your space. Express yourself. Don't feel like you're a nuisance. Yeah.
I love that. That a lot.
Say it with your chest.
Oh, we got to bring you to Cali. That's that American accent came back. Oh, yeah, we got to get you out here. Got to get you out.
Okay, sure. I mean, I've never been, so might as well.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us with the wonderful Alina. I'm
Oh.
so happy to see you, and see how far you come, not giving up. And I can imagine everything that you saw. Um, but the world is better for you becoming stronger, and we
Thank
give
you
you
so
your
much.
flowers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was good fun.